Thank you very much for being here. It's 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. My apologies. I was up at GCC because they've just made an announcement that they have received their accreditation and for another 6 years. And really interesting because they had about maybe 12 commendations that they have given to the college, and only about 4 minor areas to make some corrections. And even before the final announcement, Dr. Okada had made a presentation to the accreditation team in advance and was able to address every one of those areas. So it was an overwhelming commendation, so we should be very proud of our Guam Community Colleges.
We'll give them a hand.
Yes, thank you. So for this morning, I know we're here for the Unified Judiciary of Guam budget hearing, and I'd like to thank the Vice Speaker for joining us this morning, Senator Palacios, of course, the Oversight Chair, and Senator Yamashita for joining me. And I would like to ask if Chief Justice, you can introduce, of course, yourself and your team that's with you this morning to present your budget.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members of the committee. That's excellent news that you have relayed to us about the Guam Community College. It was just only a few weeks ago that we met with Dr. Okada, and we laid out to her our training needs, and so we have agreed to work together in which they are going to try and help us with the training that we need over at the Guam Judiciary. So we must congratulate her, and that's excellent news. For the record, Madam Chair, my name is Philip Carbolito. I'm the Chief Justice of Guam. To my left is Mr. Perry Titan, our Administrator of the Courts. My left is Justice Robert Torres. Next to me is Hannah Gutierrez Arroyo, our Clerk of Court of the Supreme Court. Mr. Josh Tenorio, our Director of Policy, Planning, and Community Affairs. And to his right is Mrs. Lonnie Brennan, and she's the acting Deputy Chief Probation Officer. And with us also in the room are our division heads and those who have participated in helping us put together our budget and present and help us in terms of putting together our presentation. If I may, Madam Chair, just to say some introductory remarks before I turn it over to the three here who will be presenting our budget overview and presentation. I just like to say at the outset, as I've said earlier, that the governor has announced with the limited resources that we have, that's important that our leaders in government prioritize the areas of health, education, and public safety. And hopefully through the course of our presentation, we'd like to make the case and share with you our position that the judiciary is at the hub of public safety in terms of maintaining law and order in our community and just being the central organization that processes those who have violated our criminal laws. And so in making the determination of what areas are deserving of the priority with our limited resources, we submit that the judiciary is right up there as part of public safety. I think if in having now worked with the team for the last couple of months in trying to synthesize our presentation over the course of about an hour and a half, it would have been a lot more impactful if we were just to invite people that have been affected by the judiciary. We have a few clips that will give you a sense of what I may be talking about, but it would have been a lot more meaningful if we were to bring those people actually in to testify how the judiciary has impacted their lives and really the work that we do there and how it affects the community, then I think there can be a better sense just in terms of the work we do and how the judiciary does more than just sit within the confines of the courtroom and seek to dispense justice, but actually how we actually help people in terms of their lives. That's not possible with the time we have, and so we just have some video clips that will hopefully give you that sense. And so at the end of the day, we hope, or at least the morning, that you'll at least share and think about that we are deserving of your support, because I feel that supporting our budget at the level that we're asking is a good investment for our community. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Josh Tenorio, who will start off our presentation. And after we've made the presentation, then I'd just like to say a few closing remarks, and then of course we're always open to questions during the process, but then at that time we'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Josh?
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to also welcome Senator Frank Blas Jr. that joined us this morning. And prior to that, we have our Sergeant at Arms who would, by law, of course, swear you all in who are testifying on budget hearings. I know you guys normally conduct this, but
We'd be happy to.
can you please stand then?
Yeah, everyone can stand. In case they have to answer a question.
Raise your right hand. Under penalties of perjury, you solemnly swear that what you say during these budget hearings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You guys all affirm?
We affirm.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Tenorio, then you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Speaker Wampat and Vice Speaker Cruz and members of the Legislature, and Minority Leader, and Senator Yamashita, and of course our Oversight Chair, Senator Palacios. I'm going to be the lead presenter, and I just wanted to point out that Attorney Hannah Gutierrez Arroyo, who is the clerk of the Supreme Court, is available to speak about court process, filings, and those kinds of related issues. And Lonnie Brennan, our acting deputy chief probation officer, will be able to articulate and address therapeutic court issues and probation issues. And I would like to invite you to go ahead and stop me at any time if you have any questions, if you need clarification, and if we can provide the answer, we definitely will do that for you. If we do not have the answer, and there is every one of our division heads is here, then if it's a matter that they have cognizance over, then we will go ahead and ask them to provide you with the response. Right now, for fiscal year 2012, the total appropriation level that the legislature has provided to the judiciary is $24,738,596, which is a nominal increase from the previous fiscal year 2011, with about $24.6 million. That amount was significantly higher than the fiscal year 2010 issue of appropriation level of $23 million. And the reason for that large increase is that was the budget in which the first two 10% portions of the 40% law enforcement specialty pay was sustained in the judiciary's budget. You can see that traditionally the judiciary's request is several million dollars more than the actual amounts that are appropriated. In this chart, the amounts appropriated by the legislature are in red, and the requests in blue from the judiciary. And to go over those numbers, the judiciary's request beginning in fiscal year 2010 had been almost $26 million, and in 2011 about $28.5 million, which is about $4 million more than the actual approved budget. And then for this fiscal year, we had requested $29.2 million. For fiscal year 2013, with all of the various appropriations we're requesting, that amount is $30.7 million. Earlier earlier this year, there was disagreement between the two branches, the executive and the judiciary, about cash allotments. And so you'll see that, especially between the months of December and April, you see a wide disparity in the actual amount of cash that was dispersed by the Department of Administration versus the cash allotment schedule that we had provided to the Department of Administration. In April, you see that number, and in May, definitely, that number coming close to the amount that was allotted. And this was primarily due to the fact that the judiciary was able to rely on 5 GCA Section 22111, which the legislature enacted several years ago, actually last fiscal year, in special legislation and then amended in the last Budget Act to provide a formula in which the Director of Administration would provide these cash allotments. So I would submit that our operations and the stability of our operations are quite dependent on our reliance on the statute that you passed in the legislature. And we understand that there are proposals by the administration to remove this formula, and we would like to request that the legislature maintain this language. In terms of reducing our expenditures, the judiciary received several $1 million in ARA funds to do wide-scale light retrofitting and air conditioning upgrades in the judiciary, in the Guam Judicial Center and in the annex next door. We've also, through our procurement manager, Mr. Taminglo, have pushed forward with bulk purchasing agreements to reduce our copier contract costs and communication services and waste disposal. We've been holding back filling funded vacancies, primarily because of the cash situation, but also to try and toe the line on reducing or holding expenditures back. And then we've also adjusted operations to reduce specialty pay, such as removing or canceling evening or weekend classes in probation or other things like that to reduce the amount of night or hazardous pay that law enforcement officers and others were entitled to. On top of that, of course, we have a pretty good record maximizing federal funds and looking for federal fund sources to bridge that gap. What this amounted to in the last few months has been to offset the fluctuating utility costs that many of you have been seeing in your own personal bills and throughout the government. And definitely for the first quarter, this helped bridge the cash allotment shortfall that was caused during this disagreement with the administration. And then, of course, providing interim cash to support critical services such as month-to-month funding for mental health court. In terms of the contributions we're making to help, I would say, subsidize legislative appropriations, about $1.5 million in community service hours based on the minimum wage have been performed throughout the government. A large portion in the public schools when schools are out of session, and also in the mayor's offices doing maintenance work and hopefully bridging that gap in maintenance needs that these agencies have been expressing to the legislature. There is capacity to grow this figure with large amounts of people in probation, under supervised probation, that I'll show you in a subsequent slide. As the Chief Justice said, we do believe that we are a critical part of the public safety infrastructure on Guam, maintaining law and order. We are focused on, many of our divisions are focused on protecting individuals, children, families, victims of crimes, and also for supervising a large number of criminal offenders in comparison to our residential population. In terms of the Judicial Building Fund, for this fiscal year, we've received about nearly $1.8 million, and we're projecting at the end of September that we will get $2.3 million from fines and fees. And currently, we've expended nearly $2 million with projected expenses to be about $2.3 million, the amount that we're projecting to receive. To summarize summarize our request for this fiscal year, our increase is about $5,675,774, which we can categorize into two major divisions. The first, which are mandated constitutional and statutory expenses, which in many respects are controlled by statutes, and the legislature may have a huge impact on this, and other operational expenses. You'll see that we do have separate appropriations for court-appointed indigent fund fees, and that increase is about $554,000. And then we do want to thank the longstanding priorities of the legislature in funding the adult and juvenile drug court programs. We are requesting an increase in this area to keep up with demand, and I'll discuss that in a subsequent slide. And of course, a new appropriation for mental health court, which I'd like to discuss in depth in the subsequent presentation. In terms of a breakdown of what these constitutional and statutory expenses are, the largest amount is the law enforcement compensation balance of the 30% and 40% increments in getting up to the pay that was authorized in the 29th Guam legislature. That's about $2.5 million. Other than that increase we're requesting for a court-appointed indigent fund, we've also requested an increase in jury expenses of $100,000. And then, of course, you've been seeing this throughout the last month, where agencies just like ours are coming forward with a request for the increase in the contribution rate for retirement fund, our hazardous and night differential amount, which I'll talk about also, and increments for our classified employees of nearly $150,000. So this is about $3.8 million in what we call classified mandatory constitutional and statutory expenses. In terms of operational expenses, the largest amount here is $1 million for contractual, and that includes 2 off-site rentals we have that are critical to our operations. The Northern Court Satellite, which is about $157,000 annually, and off-site storage, $147,000 for all the court records and cases. Other large amounts here are for utilities, $333,000, and unfilled positions of $234,000 that have been filled in the past. I'll discuss the mental health court, drug court, and protective orders in subsequent slides. More about the law enforcement increment. It was in Public Law 29-105 that mandated that 40% increase over a 4-year period. And so a special appropriation was made to pay the first and second 10% increments. However, now at the beginning of October, the 3rd and 4th increments will be past due, and this specialty pay affects 54 marshals and 47 probation officers to a price tag of just about $2.5 million. We've communicated with the retirement fund to determine the impact on our potential retirees, and I wanted to say about 25% of our Marshals Division have government service of 25 years or more. Oh, too much? Thank you, Vice Speaker. Back on with regards to the retirement fund, as soon as we provide payment of the retirement fund contributions and proof that we've paid our employees, they would go and adjust the retirement annuities upwards for those retirees that are affected. And so this is an entitlement that we're documenting, and whether or not we have the appropriation to pay currently, it's still an obligation for the judiciary, and I imagine for the other law enforcement officers. In terms of our hazardous pay and night differential, we have had good progress reducing or holding down these amounts. In some other law enforcement agencies, their amounts are in the millions. We're holding ours at about $209,000. We do this because we have a pretty strict accountability where there is a lot of review a review period in the process, both internally at the probations and probation division and marshals, but also in court administration. So we're happy that we believe that we have a good model to try and keep these expenses down. In terms of the case information, in 2011 we had 9,294 matters that were filed, including more than 2,027 criminal felony and criminal misdemeanor cases. Right now, we're tracking the juvenile numbers that they'll be exceeding. At first, we started getting anecdotal stories from clerks and judges about the amount of time and increases in the caseload. And when we're analyzing these numbers, you'll see that we're expecting increases. A lot of this based on the priorities of the Guam Police Department and the Attorney General's office in providing more resources to juvenile crimes. Largest case filings here, of course, is small claims, 2,125 cases, which I believe are indicative of the business environment here on Guam and how this is necessary for the government's economic development initiatives. The other areas, of course, are related to civil cases, 1,984 in that area. To compare this for the last 5 years, you'll see that the numbers somewhat are steady, although you'll see that the priorities of the executive branch dictate a lot of the cases that come through the judiciary. And so in 2010, you'll see at the Juvenile Drug Court, there were only 84 referrals from the Attorney General's office. And then when more resources were provided to Juvenile Affairs Division and Police and to the court and to the AG's office, the referrals went back up to 131. This is a moving number. We have a lot of juveniles in pretrial probation right now being assessed, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about the Juvenile Drug Court. But in terms of the increases, you'll see that pretty much for the last 3 years there have been a significant number of increases in criminal cases. We're expecting this number to be exceeded again this year because of the recent focus on DUI and alcohol-related crimes. We're doing this with 335 employees that are funded by legislative appropriations, in which the largest group are the court's ministerial section that are responsible for documenting and maintaining all of the court records as cases go through the system. After that division, the next largest is probation with 63 probation officers and a small number of admin staff to service probation officers, and then 57 in Marshals Division. Judges and chambers is 30, and then the Supreme's at 27. Our admin, I would say we try and reduce or hold down the number of general administration employees that we have to as much as possible. In terms of the education levels, and I would say that the reason why our personnel budget may be up higher is we have a large number of employees that have postgraduate degrees and college degrees. All probation officers, for example, have to have college degrees in order to qualify to be a probation officer and work with those children and adults. In terms of the number of military guardsmen and reservists, we do have a large number in comparison to our total population of employees, with 38 employees of the judiciary that are military reservists and guardsmen. Of that 38, we have 15 that are currently on long-term military leave or have been deployed into any one of the various theaters. In terms of the total number of hours these employees have dedicated to service in the United States military is 17,266. And I just wanted to mention that I was interviewed a few weeks ago about military leave, and so I wanted to share with you that in the judiciary, pursuant to the law, we do afford our employees the maximum 15 days military leave if needed, but we do not approve any leave sharing or leave transfers from other agencies. We, unlike some of the other agencies in the executive branch, we have a strict reading of the law, which means that if any employee has a leave balance in either annual or sick, they are not eligible for leave for leave sharing. On top of that, we also exercise our discretionary authority to prioritize identifying, in some cases, limited term employees to replace temporarily the probation officers or marshals that are needed in the court. We have 69 unclassified employees comprising of the judicial officers and law clerks and our division heads. Most of, I think maybe about 55% of these have advanced degrees. They're either JDs or they're licensed clinical psychologists or therapists. In terms of court technology, Justice Torres has been leading our effort to implement our new case management system. We're currently live on criminal cases, and we're migrating civil cases over. We're also live on traffic. On top of that, the Judiciary has also been designated by the government of Guam to be the state information bureau for FBI background checks and providing criminal history information to federal law enforcement authorities, and then also having that information to be shared with all the local law enforcement entities. We also, within the probation division, operate the sex offender registry, and I'll give you some data about the number of sex offenders that we have registered in the next slide, in a few slides. In terms of the efficiencies we expect to start experiencing as the year approaches, the next year approaches, are the online payment of court fees, fines, and restitution, which we believe is going to help considerably with our parking problem in Hagatna that I'm sure most of you have heard about. We're also looking forward to processing online court and traffic clearances to make it convenient for our residents, along with paying traffic tickets online. The Superior Court will also be implementing e-filing and joining the Supreme Court that has been doing that for the last few years. And then we also are going to be able to provide electronic public access so that residents will be able to get real-time information on court cases that are going through the court system. Finally, we're also hoping to manage our jury pool and jury questionnaires online on the web. In the last few years, you've been noticing a priority in addressing human services that the Judiciary has been involved in, and we see this as the evolution both locally and nationally in justice. And so I'd like to go ahead and share with you some of these programs that we believe are vital. Just some notes based on the Department of Corrections. The cost to incarcerate an adult offender annually is a bit more than $35,000. Versus the average cost to supervise adults on probation at $7,599 a year, which is a difference of about $28,000 per person to be cared for or to be incarcerated. And so the big alarming number I would suggest is that there are 7,800 Guam residents that are currently on supervised probation. These are all active cases, of which in that number, 650 of those are juveniles, and these juveniles are predominantly attending Guam's public secondary schools. We have 593 sex offender registrants that are living in our community that we have some supervision with, and we do have an average caseload of 235 cases for every probation officer working in the courts of Guam, which is almost double the 120 low-risk clients per officer national average. In terms of client documented contacts, I wanted to make sure we mentioned this for one of the senators, 111,000 client documented contacts for calendar year 2011, and almost 27,000 drug tests, both urinalysis and breathalyzer testing that are required for people on pretrial probation services and those going through the drug courts and DUI courts that we're servicing. Next slide. In terms of the active caseload for probation, the largest number is in adult probation with 3,033 clients, and the next highest amount is in pretrial services, 2,971 with individuals going through the current system. And then, of course, we have the juvenile probation numbers, of which a certain amount are in juvenile drug court, and et cetera. our alternative sentencing office that operates within probation provides classes and instruction in law and order for various subjects such as crime prevention, anger and stress management, alcohol education. We also have an alcohol education program in the Chuukese language to meet demand in that community and case demand. And then, of course, we have domestic abuse and petty theft diversionary programs. And this, in 2011, we serviced almost 2,000 clients in these areas. In terms of our client services and family counseling division, this division was basically created in the late 1980s, and right now there are a variety of issues that client services addresses, including issues facing children, juveniles, adults, and families whose psychosocial problems contribute to their legal problems. So this client services and family counseling division services these individuals to provide treatment. And this is pretty much in a response to an increase in psychosocial problems that we're seeing on the island, including family violence, sexual abuse, substance use and abuse, and juvenile delinquency, and then, of course, the things that we've been seeing, teen pregnancy, teen suicide, and then also, of course, child abuse and neglect. In this area, client services is, in 2011, you see an increase in juvenile referrals in that division, as well as a nominal increase in adults that require servicing. The kinds of things that this division performs, they do psychological and forensic evaluations on demand in response to judges that require these to move criminal cases. And the Client Services and Family Counseling Division provides treatments, for the offender, the victim, the families, and the community. So it's really a global approach in dealing with the aftermath of a crime. We are affected by the mental health crisis that's occurring in Guam, and so as you know, the permanent injunction is limited to only adults with certain kinds of diagnoses. It doesn't address children and others that we pick up other adults. In terms of our observations, there is an inadequate training in dealing with individuals with mental illness and disabilities, and lately we've been partnering with Senator Yamashita to help train or provide resources and tools for non-clinical mental health screening that can be conducted by the Guam Police Department in responding to incidents. We're also affected by the lack of specialized residential housing for people that shouldn't be incarcerated, and also with homelessness problem in this population that also in some cases prevents releases of defendants into more suitable places. The other crisis that we're affected by is the drug and alcohol rehab crisis. Aside from Sanctuary that's providing a clinical residential treatment program for juveniles, there isn't a clinical setting for adult men and women. We do have some residential services in a non-clinical environment provided by Salvation Army and the Oasis Empowerment Center. And interestingly enough, the only residential substance abuse treatment program on the island that is functioning is, other than the Sanctuary one, is at the Department of Corrections for their inmates. So the drug court program is coming in to basically provide and fill in these gaps. So we've responded to all these crises by developing and in some cases localizing national trends in therapeutic and specialty courts. And so we do have 5. We have the juvenile drug court, the adult drug court, the DUI court, the family violence court, and the mental health court, which I will discuss briefly. In terms of the juvenile drug court, the longest, this is the longest of the therapeutic courts, having graduated 249 juveniles since 2003. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to ask Lonnie Brennan to go ahead and talk about the kind of treatment and contacts that we're providing with many of these people.
Juvenile Drug Court has two tracks. One is the intensive track, and that is for the smallest population, which caters to juvenile offenders, drug offenders who have addiction issues. And so what happens in the intensive track is they have frequent and weekly court hearings, frequent random drug testing, group counseling sessions, life skills workshops, recreational therapy sessions. The tracks are composed of 4 tracks. The first track is focuses on substance abuse education, frequent testing, and lasts 4 to 6 weeks. Tracks 2 and 3 last 10 to 12 weeks and also includes recreational therapy, frequent testing, and more intense counseling. And the last track includes a aftercare component, and that track lasts 26 weeks. It really is the only drug program for children in our community.
In order to basically move from tracks, in the first track you would have had, if you're a juvenile, you would have to test negative for 20 weeks in a row in order to basically move on to the next counseling or the next track, next level, and that's to. And at the next level, then you would receive maybe a reduced amount of court hearings and more incentives like more recreational activities. So it's all based on the actual juvenile client, and this is actually, I think, a very good program. In terms of stats for juvenile drug court, we have a less than 10% recidivism rate, and so in the intensive track, currently we have 50 juveniles with serious substance abuse problems. These substance abuse problems are probably in methamphetamines, as opposed to first-time possession of marijuana, which would be in the non-intensive track. These are highly at risk to getting into that first track. In this non-intensive track, we have 325 juveniles. And with a large number, about 40 juveniles in pretrial probation services waiting for admittance into the drug court program to receive services. In this regard, we do work with juveniles and their parents or guardians, a lot of grandparents, because many of these come from homes where they do not have parents that are being attentive. We partner with substance abuse treatment specialists, education and vocational experts. Judge Barcinas is assigned to this docket, and in part of his normal routine is to evaluate and look at report cards of kids that are, and attendance records at schools. He brings in principals and school teachers sometimes to try and figure out and make sure that these educational plans, are effective, and also to evaluate what the needs are of the children that are attending the schools. And so I wanted to ask Hannah to introduce this clip that we wanted to share with you from a parent.
This is a mother of a child who has recently graduated from the Juvenile Drug Court program. She wanted to read and share some of her thoughts that she conveyed at the Juvenile Drug Court graduation. She did want to come public and come forward. However, her child, who I believe is only 14 years old, had requested anonymity. So to protect the child, the mother's face is not being shown. But she is reading a portion of the speech that she delivered at the recent Juvenile Drug Court graduation.
Good day and good afternoon. We've been in the JDC program for at least 14 months. I can only speak and reflect on the experience that I've had with my son while being in the JDC program. When we started the program in January of last year, I did not know what to expect. You're not sure if you should be angry, hurt, betrayed, and believe it or not, even glad. When you finally come to the realization that your child needs help, JDC is the place where not just your child, but you as a parent can get the help that is needed. Like any parent, I cried the very first time I faced Judge Barcinas. with my son as he read his charges and revealed the problem that we were faced with. I knew then that it was going to be a tough road ahead. Judge Barcenas was a tough judge, but he never gave up on my son and any one of these kids. He, as well as the probation officers and workers, encouraged our children to do better. But I also knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had to support my son. I will forever be indebted to the guidance and support that my son and I received from everyone in the JDC program. We were never shunned upon by anyone. If anything, we were always encouraged and given hope that things will get better. And they have. When I first met Mr. Sands and Tony Charkaloff for Parent Group, I thought, who are they to tell me how to guide my child when they had no clue what I was going through? I was wrong. They knew. Their bluntness was something I was not accustomed to. It was something that I now know was what I needed in order to help my son succeed. We've been through so many challenges, but together we rose above it. We leave here today with new friends, and for most, an extended lifeline family.
Our budget request includes a request for an increase of $88,232 to basically expand the number of juveniles that we're able to service. And so this $88,000 would pay for probation officer 2, salary and benefits, along with counseling services. Other than the staff of counselors that Virginia has supervision over at the Client Services Division, which are pretty much to service the family violence courts. What we do is we contract with licensed therapists. We have, I want to say we have a pool of a dozen licensed therapists that are not court employees that are providing these services to our juveniles. And then, of course, drug testing supplies is the amount to basically sustain for an expansion of the number of juveniles to come in. In terms of participation for the adult drug court, it's our next slide. This is for adults, men or women 18 years or older, charged with nonviolent crimes involving possession of a Schedule II or felony DUI. And felony DUI are serious felony DUI, which means that this small, narrow population are for people with multiple felony DUI cases that continue to have in this case, a substance abuse problem with alcohol and are endangering lives. This adult drug court is assigned to presiding Judge Lamorena. He just received this in January, but he is the creator of this program nearly 10 years ago, and he leads a team of a prosecutor and a defense attorney and the probation officer. I did not mention this in JDC, but this is a typical drug court team. You have to be referred by the Attorney General's office in order to be, after a review and assessment is done, in order to be admitted into the program. And on top of that, it is not an involuntary assignment. Each defendant has to voluntarily participate and basically personally commit that they're going to complete the program and in many cases receive a higher level of scrutiny than a regular pretrial defendant. And that has a lot to do with the frequency of the random drug and alcohol testing.
Like the juvenile drug court, the adult drug court consists of phases. The adult drug court consists of 4 phases. The whole program takes a minimum of 12 months. In phase 1, the average weekly contact that the adult drug court client will have with their team is 7 times a week. Minimum of 28 contacts is required, and average weekly contact once they graduate into phase 2, which is the treatment phase. The first phase is the educational phase. The second phase being the treatment phase. They have an average of 7 times per week contact. Moving into the third phase, which is skills application, the average weekly contact is 6 times per week. And then in the final phase, which is aftercare and transition, minimum number of contacts required is 126, and the average weekly contact is 5 times per week. Our next slide is an individual who graduated from the adult drug court program. This is somebody who was once a productive member of our community, fell into addiction, and had sought rehabilitation and help off island, and tried to do it himself until eventually he ended up in the adult drug court. He had requested to make this video. He viewed it as part of his healing and part of his rehabilitation. So this is Mr. Ken Lepe.
My lowest point was when I got arrested in 2009. Also, one of the lowest points is when when I got arrested, I lost my family, had to move out of the house, and also my mom and dad weren't talking to me. I became really dependent on the drug, my choice, and at that time I knew I needed help. When I got arrested, I know I needed change in my life. The adult drug court was very instrumental in my recovery today. When I look back at trying to do this on my own and trying to kick the addiction, I couldn't do this without the guidance of the adult drug court. It was very intense. The requirements they expected from me, the testing daily. I went to another treatment center in Pasadena, California, and I didn't have to test every day or no one to answer to every day. It was just a treatment center that you would check into, and it was a 12-step program. Whereas with the adult drug court, it was the supervision of a case manager and my probation officer that I would see probably on a daily basis, if not every other day.
So Hannah talked about the assessments and talked about the different tracks, and similar to the juvenile drug court, there's a lot of incentives that are pushed in to this program. But the big thing that Presiding Judge Lamorena is attempting to try and expand is the amount of job opportunities that may be available to drug court graduates. And so the selling point is that you know that if you choose to consider an adult drug court graduate who is qualified for this job, you'll know that at least for a year and a half he had been subject to weekly random drug testing. And so you know that at least they're showing a sign of commitment and determination to complete a pretty rigorous program. So we're aggressively trying to identify good partnerships to try and get these people back into being productive members of society, and we believe strongly that once employed, their lives are stable and the reoccurrence of crime is definitely limited. In terms of the drug court stats, since 2005, there have been 240 graduates in the adult drug court program, and currently there are 55 in adult drug court 1, which is geared towards first-time offenders on an expungement track. The second adult drug court is a non-expungement track. These are people that have maybe more serious crimes, or they're not first-time offenders, but new to the adult drug program, and there's a very small recidivism rate of 6%, and those recidivists are usually pushed back into adult drug court 2. So the next one is the DWI court, and this court was created in response to the priorities of the executive branch in dealing with the DWI problem, along, of course, with the recent enactment of stricter alcohol consumption and distribution laws. Here there is since 2010 in August, there's been a mandatory confinement policy for DUI. And in terms of to respond to that, the Supreme Court created and established the DWI court as a pilot program. Immediately, 988 cases were assigned, which represent 47% of the total criminal felony and criminal misdemeanor cases filed in between November 2010 and November 2011. And so this DWI court also includes a risk assessment. And let me just say that this is, we don't want to build this as a therapeutic court. It has some therapeutic components. It's a specialty court to basically respond to the executive branch and the community's priorities. Here we also provide alcohol education program in both English and Chuukese, and about 12% of these with the serious addiction issues are referred to the Mental Health New Beginnings program. Also, there are weekly court hearings here. The DWI court, since its inception, was assigned to Senior Judge Pro Tem Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, and that assignment is going to be redistributed in September as she finishes her work with the Judiciary. Here, there are frequent drug and alcohol testing that happen, and you'll see that in 2011, she had nearly 3,800 drug tests that were administered in her first year, with a 98% negative test rate. That's because of the nature of the drug tests and how clients are called, and we're hoping that that means that there's some corrective behavior that's happening. In this case, unlike in the adult drug court where there is, for first-time offenders, an expungement statute, in this court there is no expungement. If it's a misdemeanor, criminal misdemeanor DUI case, if they complete the program, she likely will drop, the Attorney General's office will reduce the charge to a reckless driving case, but she keeps that on the record so that she can keep an eye out for future occurrences. The next one is the Family Violence Court. We talked a little about this with the support that Client Services and Family Counseling provides this one. But in 2010, 33% of misdemeanor cases and 20% of felony cases were family violence offenses. And so in this court, not only do we adjudicate the assailants, but we also provide counseling services to the victims and try and facilitate certain things that need to happen, such in civil court. Sometimes there needs to be domestic case, a divorce action that would help try and end the violence in that case. And in others, there's significant effort spent on trying to reunite those families that can be reunited. This court, we need a protective orders clerk, and up until now, for the last couple of years, we've had federal funds to have a protective orders clerk that basically inputs protective orders that are issued in the Guam Judiciary to put in a national database so that it can help with our law enforcement effort. And so this is one of the positions that we're requesting for. Finally, the Mental Health Court was established in 2009 by a 2-year federal grant that was made so that our local jurisdiction can determine whether or not having a mental health court is effective, and we do believe that it is. And so the 2-year grant program has ended. In this case, we're providing services to individuals with mental illness who have become involved in the criminal justice system, and it's staffed by a mental health court coordinator and a mental health court case manager, in addition to a probation officer that is assigned here. And so we know that 1 in 5 families are affected by mental illness. Here, the mental health court is limited currently to adults with men or women 18 years of older charged with nonviolent criminal offenses. There is some active request by the Attorney General's office for this court to service individuals that may be charged with certain violent crimes, such as assault. In these cases, these clients are diagnosed with an acute mental disorder needing treatment or a developmental disability, and applicants with co-occurring disorders such as substance abuse may also qualify. There is also intensive compliance monitoring. In fact, this court may have the most amount of contacts with the clients. They offer frequent and supportive supervision. Many cases are resolved by making sure that the clients are taking their medication. And I just wanted to compare that. Unfortunately, a mental health court client receives this amount of constant care, but a mental health patient that is not in the criminal justice system, in some cases only receives contact with a social worker once every 6 months. So that is not a good occurrence. Our mental health court coordinator, William Brandshagen, we call him Brandy, goes and does a lot of home visitations with a probation officer, trying to address family issues, and then also monitoring our aftercare program, in which graduates of the mental health court program are able to at least continue to have some contact with these people they're so familiar with, and we consider it the reason why we have a very 0% recidivism rate. I do want to introduce you here to Fidel Billy. He's a mental health court graduate. He is hard to understand in certain ways. He is Chuukese, and after mental health court, he's actually voluntarily elected to return to his home island. But in this case, you'll be able to at least know this describes adequately what we do in our voluntary aftercare program for a mental health court graduate.
Okay, this is Fidel and Rose. Fidel was a member of the mental health court for several years. He graduated last year. He's doing super well. In fact, he is fixing to travel on back home to Chuuk next week. Fidel, can you tell us how mental health court helped you?
Helped me for good. My body is good.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything, my brain is very good. Not like before.
Okay, and what happened before?
Before I drinking a lot of alcoholic.
Ah, okay.
Now no more again.
Okay, that's good. And Mr. Collins from Mental Health Court would come out and see you. What did he do for you?
He's doing me for stop drinking like that. Stop doing wrong ways
Uh-huh.
like that.
And before you came into Mental Health Court, what were you doing? Where were you living?
And mentally.
In mental health. Okay, before that, when you had the family violence, were you in the jungle?
I stay with my sister.
Okay, and that's where you had the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And since then, what happened? What happened after you had the incident with your sister?
So I sleep there outside.
Outside.
So I see two men, they're coming, but not people. Now I understand, I know that it's not people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way I run away from the house. I
Okay.
stay in jungle like 3 days
Mm-hmm.
or 1 week, and night and day over there.
Okay. And then you got arrested?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when they put you into mental health?
Yeah, they put me in
And that's how you got to mental health court?
yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Billy. I really appreciate your telling us this. Do you have anything else you want to say about how we treated you and how well you did?
It's okay.
So,
I should have prefaced this by saying that Mr. Billy was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he also has a mild retardation. So in terms of the mental health court stats, since 2012 of May, we've had 71 participants with 14 that are waiting for admission in the mental health court. And so the total number of mental health clients since May 2009 has been 113. And that's resulted in one serious case being sent off island because of the lack of residential housing. And so again, I credited the 0% recidivism rate on this aftercare program that allows, maintains contact with our coordinators. We need $98,823 to fund the mental health court coordinator and the mental health court case manager. And I do want to point out that for the last 6 months or more, these staff have been working month to month, basically having their personal actions are expiring every month, and this has taken a toll, and so we've had our case manager basically quit because he has young children and couldn't jeopardize not having job security. And so we've identified, we have a probation officer that is covering this right now to maintain the operations. And so I would say that we're desperately in need of attention to provide adequate funding and basically for the local decision to be made to continue mental health court on Guam. Finally, in terms of human services, we have a lot of human services provided by our public guardian, which is an office within the Supreme Court. You'll see that since October 2009 to October 2012, she has had a significant increase in the number of wards that have been assigned to her supervision and care. And so what she does, other than handling the judicial affairs of the wards that are assigned to her, she does review and approve about 2,000 transactions to maintain the livelihoods of the wards that are assigned to her, and on a day-to-day basis deals with crises and emergencies with her and her staff. And of course our public guardian is Marcy Santos. In terms of the treatment responsibilities, she supervises the transition and placement of wards into better living conditions in some cases. She provides exclusive consent to hospital and healthcare authorities to determine medical treatment for wards that are in her care. And in terms of human services, she goes out to make sure that these wards who are eligible for public services receive such public services. And so this includes doing personal banking or taking these wards to the grocery store so that they're able to survive. The final video, well, this is not the final video clip, but Patrick Camacho is a veteran, a retired veteran, and he is a ward of the public guardian. And his testimony, it pretty much is indicative of the kinds of things that the public guardian finds herself doing to care for these wards.
Afade, my name is Patrick Camacho. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a former United States Marine. I am well taken care of the public guardian. I bought a house with their guidance and help, and bought a new car, and we're budgeting, and they're paying my water and power on time, and I'm waking up in the morning feeling a lot better so I can move on and live independently.
And I think that's the role, is to try and get these people to have a good living or livelihood as compared to where they came from. In many cases, they're either abandoned by their families or they don't have any families whatsoever on the island. I did mention that he mentioned that he was a veteran, and I did want to just say, push an aside, that many of you I've been noticing, have been conscious about the issues of veterans, and so I do want to say that the General of the National Guard has asked the Chief Justice to take a look at some national models of a veterans court, and with the high number of war veterans that the island is experiencing right now with the big deployment next year, that's something that we're actively looking at, and Chief Justice Carbolito has asked Judge Anita Sokola, who is in charge of mental health court, to take a look at this, and we've asked our court program staff also to take a look and identify what kind of resources or programs we may be able to qualify for, so we could try and see whether or not it can be responsive to this kind of person. And so we do see a national trend in establishing veterans courts to try and take into consideration that military service, and in many cases the trauma that has occurred that's been affecting the lives of these veterans. The public guardian has to work with the social service providers and works closely with adult protective services and child protective services. In fact, she gets several, we get referrals from adult protective services for wards to be designated or assigned. She's established the relationships with VA, the Social Security Administration, and in St. Dominic's is something that I wanted to mention because, as you know, we have a large population of elderly folks that in some cases are also abandoned. And so I want to go ahead and introduce you to Sister Emelita. This is our last video clip. Sister Emelita helps run St. Dominic's and is in constant communication with our public guardian to service her population.
Since most of our residents are manampo and have medical problems, and they cannot do their affairs on their own, so we rely on the Office of the Public Guardian and in assisting them with that. They have families or have friends who are unable to. Well, the Office of the Public Guardian has been really a big help in really advocating for the needs of our residents, especially in getting them their supplies, their medications on a timely basis, and also in doing their paperwork in regards to MIP or Medicaid or whatever insurance they may have.
Well, courts traditionally are seen as just crime and punishment, adjudicating criminality or helping civil litigants settle disputes. And in that respect, we do continue to function and play our role in the government-wide mandate to provide for the public safety. However, as the Chief Justice indicated and as Josh indicated, we've evolved now into providing human services as well. This is in keeping, not only in keeping with the national trend, but in response to the inadequacies of rehabilitation and service providers here on island. This is also an extension of our fulfilling our mandate to provide for the public safety. When we give these people the skills and the tools and the opportunities to change their lives and to move from their criminal behavior by addressing the issues that are underlying what led them into the criminal justice system in the first place, we reduce recidivism rates, we make Guam a safer community. What we need to continue to have the mental health court operational, and we need the funds to do that. We also need to expand the juvenile drug court program to accommodate the growing number of juveniles who need these services. We need to give them the tools and the opportunity to turn their young lives around, and Josh had indicated what we need those funds for, what those funds will be paying for, and that's $88,232 that we're requesting.
All right, so I'd like to leave this up. This again summarizes our request. It provides you with the amount that you've budgeted and appropriated in the last fiscal year, and explains what the increase is. And hopefully we've done an adequate job to give you an overview. And now we're ready to answer your questions. And I pass this on to Chief Justice Carbolito.
Thank you, and I will be very brief. In my earlier readings, there was a professor. His name was W. Edwards Deming. He really made his impact in Japan, just in terms of advising top executives in terms of design. He was a statistician. But what caught my eye when I just was reading about this person is a quote that he made that I think is appropriate for the activity that you are undergoing in terms of this budget process and what we are trying to do here this morning. And he said that in God we trust, all others must bring data. And I think what we have tried to do for you today is to provide the information and the data as to why we feel that the support that we are asking from you is a good investment in our community. As you have seen in terms of the presentation that we have tried to synthesize, is that the judiciary is more than just deciding whether a defendant is guilty or not guilty. In the past, we have been terribly unsuccessful in terms of speaking in principles as access to justice, judicial independence. We all fully appreciate that this rings hollow to all of you when, as we leave this room, other people will come before you and in the Department of Education, and they don't have enough money to buy their supplies and maybe pay their teachers, and the hospital in terms of needing more money to run the hospital. So in comparison to them, obviously, in judicial independence, access to justice means nothing. And so what we've tried to attempt in our video clips is to give you a real picture on really what transpires at the judiciary. And when we do more than just sit in the courtroom and issue judgments. As you can see, the judiciary, through the various therapeutic and specialty courts, and this is why I have asked the staff to spend some time so that you can appreciate more just in terms of how we affect people's lives in our community. We turn people's lives around. As you can see from the video clips, that absent these absent these therapeutic courts, these individuals will likely have reoffended and ended up being an additional cost to our community. We've had over 500 of our citizens graduate from our various programs. You've seen that the savings in just in terms of one individual, if you accept the Department of Corrections figures, we save approximately $28,000 by having them supervised by a probation officer instead of being committed at DOC. Even if you were just to take 50 of those people to not reoffend, that's over $1,500,000. We've had over 500 graduate, and so when you support our budget at the request, at the level we're requesting, we feel that we are yielding a return in your investment in terms of actual savings to our community. And we have tried to demonstrate this in several ways. Number one, in terms of the cost-cutting measures that we have undertaken to try and maintain or reduce our expenses. Unfortunately, we cannot come before you today to say that you can correspondingly cut our budget because we could no longer need that money. The savings that we have realized is barely sufficient to make up the gap in terms of our allotment releases or the increasing utility costs and the other shortfalls. We have contributed to helping clean this island in terms of our community service workers. I just got a note from Chuck Adda asking if our community service workers can be available to clean up after Liberation Day. Of course, John Lazama and his group is going to have them available, and so these workers have contributed to reducing or helping the government in terms of their reduced resources. Then you have seen our therapeutic courts in terms of how they've turned around the lives of people, more than just deciding the guilt or innocence. We've actually affected people's lives. And so we submit, Madam Speaker and members of the community, that when you determine if you are going to follow the governor's lead in terms of deciding what is the priority in this government, with the reduced expenditures that revenues that are available to us, and that health, education, and public safety is the priority of this body, that the judiciary is very much a part of that, and that we have hoped that we have provided you some data to justify your confidence in us as a body that helps you keep our community safe and our people's lives productive. And so we humbly ask for your support in terms of what we are presenting to you today. thank you, and we're ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Before we start, I'd like to also welcome other members who have joined us this morning, and Senator Rodriguez, Senator Mabini, Senator Respicio, and Senator Muñoz Barnes. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, and Senator Tonieta, I didn't see you over there. Okay, thank you. I know that last week when we had a dry run, so to speak, at the request of your chairman, and I relate to you some information basically in terms only of what was submitted to OFB. And the governor had submitted, of course, a lump sum, and I had relayed that to you of $55 million, $55,324,722, and for 2013, it's $53,477,615, actually then reflecting a decrease of 3% for what he calls the 7 autonomous agencies, where he didn't give a specific amount. And those semi-autonomous agencies are the Mayor's Council, the Attorney General's Office, the courts, Public Defender, the Legislature, OFB, and of course OPA. And you know, we've actually in a couple of weeks, in seeing some other departments and agencies which are not clumped into these 7, there was definitely a cap from the governor's budget request. In this case, however, for those that I've just mentioned, there wasn't any at all. But that's an information that I've been actually letting everyone know, so that everyone would know, of course, where and how the monies are being lumped. Now, for, of course, purposes of at least reviewing your budget, and I have to say that, you know, of course, your presentation has been really very helpful in terms of breaking down, you know, what your costs have been, what your mission is, and how then, of course, you're able to justify the additional requests. But again, for just purposes of those who are listening and the other members who may not even have the actual budget packet, is that in the notes that I have, of course, in which there was a comparison of fiscal year 2012 with 2013, that, you know, there was a significant increase in your budget submission compared to 2012, and you had that as one of your first slides. And the increase is in the amount of $5,844,425, which is a 23.49% increase. Now, in reviewing, of course, some of the formula in which you're able to determine some of the increases, and I think this can easily be addressed, is that I know that for the benefits, at least for retirement, you had calculated it at 31.44%, and the entire government is the calculations being done at 30.09%. So that would be, you know, fairly easy then to be able to correct. Can you give us the breakdown? Because as you were presenting, I was trying to write this down. That I mean, we're looking at 2012 and 2013 FTEs. You have a change, meaning 3 unclassified positions. Can you share with us what those 3 are?
2 mental health and the probation.
It's 2 mental health court employees that are on the bridge funding, and the probation officer.
On the probation officer. What? So the protective order clerk, that will be on the classified, because you've got 5.
Well, we would intend to, if it's funded, then we would intend to classify that position. Right now, it's it's limited to unclassified because it's a federally funded position that's expiring.
So, so this is the basic question then. So can the judiciary continue to operate at its current appropriation level in addition to a 3% cut in funding for fiscal year 2013?
And you're talking about 3% cut from our 2012 funding level?
Based on, no, just based on the lump sum, of course, which, yes, you're right, would be 2012 level. And you didn't have a holdback, right? A setback, holdback of 15%?
No.
The reserve? No, you didn't. So then it would be based, yes, on the current appropriation level.
Well, what will occur, as you've seen, is that we will not be able to fund our increments, our retirement fund contributions, and our hazardous pay. Of course, all those areas that you've seen up there, we're not going to be able to fund, and so what that will result of course, is that personnel will be impacted. We're not going to be able to hire those additional positions we're asking, so we'll probably have to close the programs down in terms of the mental health court, and then juvenile drug court will just not be able to take on the additional the additional juveniles that we're hoping that we were trying to do. So if you're asking us, are we going to be able to maintain our operation? The answer is no. It will be impacted, of course, and because the costs that just by statute is going to increase, we no longer have those funds, so we're going to have to look in personnel in terms of how we can address that.
The Judicial Building Fund, of course, is an account for the construction of miscellaneous capital improvements of projects of the Superior Court of Guam, and to also redeem principal and to pay loan interest, as they become due. So can you share with us what is the current balance of the funds in the Judicial Building Fund? You have something
Yes.
there, but I wasn't
If
able
we
to
can
write
bring
it
that
down,
slide
so
back
yes.
up. What we have approximately in terms of the revenue that we will realize is about $2.3 million for FY 2012. The legislature has authorized us in the last fiscal year to use that to subsidize the shortfall in terms of the 2012 revenue that was appropriated. In looking at what our expenses are going into 2013, the bulk of the expense, other than paying for the loan, which is a fixed cost of approximately $900,000 to a little over $900,000, and then the lease of the Northern Court satellite and the parking lot, those are all fixed expenses. Is there, as a result of us implementing the new case management system, which is funded by the federal government, there is a software maintenance and upkeep expense that and Justice Torres can speak more to this, that really takes up the bulk of the remaining of what's available in the Judicial Building Fund for the next two, or at least for the next fiscal year, to my understanding.
As you know, the total amount that we received for the case management system was about $5.9 million, entirely of federal funds. But of course, there's additional software maintenance costs that we'll have to be responsible for, and that's included within the balance of the amount that's gone through. We've budgeted for that in the next 2 fiscal years, as the Chief Justice indicated, for the new CMS. And as you know, our new CMS is not just the case management system for the Superior Court, but also the Supreme Court, the Office of the Public Guardian, Probation, the Marshals, Financial Management Division, HR, all of our divisions, procurement, all of our divisions are undertaken with the new case management system. And that was entirely federally funded, except for some of the maintenance costs that we'll have to incur locally.
So what I think the bottom line of this is that in the past where the Judicial Building Fund may have realized certain surpluses, that instead of using it to maintain our elevators and our maintenance and upkeep of the building, we're now having to shift that, a large part of it at least, to fund this software expense as a result of this new case management system that we have implemented in our judiciary. And I'm happy to provide you the data and information in more detail.
We appreciate that. What is the current status of some of your capital outlay projects? You have the generator replacement project that was budgeted at $80,000. And then of course you've got $80,000 per year. So what is the status of that particular project?
Madam Speaker, we've deferred that for the generator. What we've done is we are working with the vendor to fabricate whatever needs to be fabricated. Mechanically, the generator is sound, and so we think that we can continue to, notwithstanding the fact that it is obsolete, they don't make it anymore, that we can continue to use that generator simply because we undertake preventive maintenance on it. And the other question?
Well, so that was $80,000.
Yes.
That was
so we've deferred that.
So, and then you were able to use the money for what then?
For the CMS, for what we've experienced now is our skylights, both on the atrium and in the Supreme Court, are leaking because they have not been repaired, and so we need to look at doing a Band-Aid fix on those skylights because the leaks is going to cost. As what has happened with the Southern High School. The same thing with the old Superior Court building. The windows are all leaking. We've covered it up. We've had to tear all the carpeting from that area and move our probation officers away from that, and that needs to be fixed. And what we're doing now is just doing Band-Aid fixes on these facilities. We have completed our air conditioning. We have upgraded the cabins in the elevators. What we need to do is just maintain the preventive maintenance program to ensure that we've managed our costs, made it more cost efficient to operate, and reduce our utility costs as well.
You were budgeted $50,000 for the skylight and tile replacement, and you've indicated that you're waiting for a $638,000 federal grant,
Right.
and then for 2012 you had requested for $103,400. So I don't understand then when you say that it's a Band-Aid fix, and we're looking at $50,000,
Yeah.
the $638,000, and then the $103,000.
We requested that from USDA, and that's just not forthcoming.
So it didn't come then.
So that money is not available, right?
So for the Band-Aid fix that you did with the $50,000 and $103,000 was not sufficient to fix
No.
it permanently?
Well, for us to assess the damage, we needed to get the architectural and engineering firm to undertake the assessment. Just the assessment alone and the construction management administration to replace it, that's going to cost $50,000. So the cost for repairing it is over $1 million, and that's just not, available to us, because our expenses, as you can see, projected is going to be $2.3 million.
The replacement of the fire alarm system, also, which was, you've indicated that you're at 95% completed in 2011, and is now in need of an additional architectural and engineering services for design specifications and drawing in the amount of $5,000. What's the status of that?
The fire alarm system, that's inclusive of the security system. They're all bundled into one. And what is it? Ray? What's the 5,000?
The 5,000, Madam Speaker, is to take care of the designs and specs for the old Superior Court building, because it really does not have an adequate fire protection system, and that project has been deferred also.
It's kind of hard to understand this, because if you're already at 95% complete, then why didn't you move forward to just complete that, then the remaining 5% to complete everything?
Well, we were taking it phase at a time. We completed the Judicial Center fire alarm system, and now the next phase to that is to do the annex. But we need to have that architectural assessment in terms of what needs to be fixed for that, and so we've had to defer that simply because of other critical needs.
At the time that report was made, the Judicial Center is 100% complete. So that 95% is relative to the Judicial Center. So now we are at 100%. But the annex, which is the older building, we haven't really started anything there.
There's a $50,000 also budgeted from your fund for risk management. Can you explain this cost?
Yeah, what we had is, we had budgeted this amount as a result of the judiciary being sued, and there's no insurance to cover any potential liability, other than if there is liability, it has to come out of our budget. And so I've proposed to the Judicial Council that we try and insure an officers and directors type insurance policy, because they're in order to protect. However, that has been deferred because there is no money, so we have not undertaken that, Madam Speaker. I thought it was prudent in light of circumstances that just surround our entire government, that it would be prudent management to obtain insurance to protect those that are involved in terms of trying to run our organization to the best of our abilities.
There was a budget request of $176,496 for operation maintenance, which was not budgeted in 2011. And these include the maintenance, of course, of typewriters, calculator machines, vehicles, acroprint machines, and most notably the automated fingerprint information system software, document imaging system software, and integrated criminal history system software. How were these maintenance costs then funded in 2011, and why are they now being funded through the Judicial Fund in 2012?
The covenant of the loan agreement allows for us to tap Judicial Building Fund to cover these costs. So in order for us to maintain our personnel, and we've had to transfer these costs over to JBF to cover for that. That's why we're able to ensure, our payroll for our employees and to cover these personnel expenses, simply because from the standpoint of effectively using our resources in managing our operations, that only takes up 15%. We've already undertaken a lot of cost-saving measures. We're not to the bone, we're down to the marrow. There's just no money in the local funding for operations, and those needs are then transferred over to JBF so that we can maintain the facility.
In the 2013 budget, Madam Speaker, that kind of flexibility, I don't see that being afforded to us, and that's what the Chief Justice is trying to say. Our options are very limited.
And I
Let me
think-
just add that that's no longer available because of the new case management system. We've decided as an organization that since we have undertaken that new system to make us more efficient and other benefits, that we have to give up certain capital improvement projects that we would have liked to have been funded, but now we're going to have to defer because at least for the next 2 years that money is not going to be available as a result of the new case management system.
And, and I think that the legislature has been responsive, of course, in terms of amending the judicial building fund that's not just for construction of, miscellaneous capital improvement projects and for your loan, principal and loan, but to allow you, of course, to use it where there are, some shortfalls and so,
And we are...
And you've done just that.
And we're very appreciative, and without that, we would not have been able to cover payroll. And so that has been a tremendous help to us.
So, Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are actually 3 items. Of course, you have asked, of course, already the judiciary what's going to happen, what are the implications if the judiciary, does not receive the requested increase. But I'd like to ask, I notice here provision on page 47 of the governor's submit with respect to proposal to completely repeal the direct deposit for judiciary appropriation, and I would like you, the Chief Justice, to share with us what are some of the implications should this proposal be adopted. I remember the times when judiciary was actually contemplating on filing suit to actually require the Department of Administration to release the allotment. Should this be repealed, would we be in that situation again?
Absolutely.
Might we be in that situation again?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, when the executive branch was not adhering to that public law, we were averaging between 40 to 60%. When you already begin your budget year being substantially cut, at least in terms of what you've requested, and then you're only receiving 40 to 60%, we just absolutely could not survive. And it wasn't for JBF, we would have payless paydays. And so as a result of us taking a firm position that the legislature has made it clear as to what this policy is in terms of releasing the allotments, after a certain back and forth, the governor agreed and instructed his staff that they will adhere to that public law. And since then, we've been averaging about 87%. Without that public law, it is my belief that we would get nowhere near what we are receiving today. And so my request is that that statute continue, and that gives us the tools to address the shortfalls that we have in all other areas. And so we are requesting that continue, because without that, we don't feel that we would be in the position we are today in terms of receiving our allotments.
If I can just add to that, Senator, it also gives us a planning tool. The agreement we've reached with the governor in reliance on the public law, we're able to then manage the cash situation for us much better than if we, go month to month not knowing whether we're going to get 40% or 60% or 80%. So the law's been very effective in that manner.
Essentially, the law provides, the current law provides that whatever is the percentage of the judiciary appropriation on the total budget, that percentage be adhered to regardless of based on collections, so that if there's a reduction, then the court would also be reduced in terms of allotment, but in corresponding percentage. Now, because there's a proposal here, and considering that there might be a 3% reduction in the, from the current budget with respect to the for the next budget. Considering that, then wouldn't you agree then that the preservation of this statute then even become even much more important?
We fully agree, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chief Justice, for the law enforcement adjustment, and you indicated that there would be officers who may be entitled to this adjustment, that they may be retiring. Well, I would like to know the feasibility of perhaps maybe funding those who would be retiring, if that would be the alternative, so that they can be calculated with the most appropriate and the final annuity rate, rather than retire without the remaining 20%, then upon implementation of that, they're going to come back, let's say, a year later, and then be adjusted. I think that it will be less cumbersome, and at the same time allow this government to at least address some of this incrementally, at least for those who will be retiring. In other words, for those who will be retiring, let us equal that out, then they can be calculated at the final rate and not having to come back 2 years later for an adjustment.
Mr. Chairman, in principle, we fully agree with you. In actuality, we would not be able to carry that out with the level of funding that we are receiving. We would just not have the money to, and that is why we inquired with the retirement fund, because we wanted to support our employees who are thinking of retiring. And although we're not able to fund their full salary with the remaining third and fourth increment, we wanted something in writing from the retirement fund that in the event that the legislature one day funds this adjustment, that they would be able to receive that entitlement retroactively. However, if we are to receive the level of funding that we receive today, we are not able to fund that third and fourth increment for any employee that will be retiring, unless there is dollars to fund that.
I understand, but looking at the about 2.4 million, which is just strictly to implement the remaining 20%, I am thinking that if it may not be 2.4, then what would be the amount that would cover at least those who are retiring? If I can get that amount at a later date,
Okay.
then perhaps that can be some kind of an amendment that may be agreeable, so that at least you get that out. And you know, this, considering that this afternoon there will be a presentation at the governor's office on 2 retiring DOC, so they'll be in that situation. And that's why I present that idea, so that those are retiring, let's complete that at least. And those that are still employed, we can continue to wait for more funding for better times, but at least I like to address those that are retiring. And for that, with the courts, where the court pretends, can I have the estimated number? If we cannot have the 2.4 for everybody, can I at least have that?
We will obtain that figure for you, and we will announce it within our law enforcement officers, that those who have made a firm decision to retire to provide us that information. We have knowledge that there are, I think, 4, how many? About 4 individuals that may be interested in retiring and may be in that situation, but we'll get a firm number from you, for you.
Can you please make sure that that information is available also to OFB?
I'm sorry?
Can you have that information available to
Yes,
OFB
yeah.
as well? Thank
Yes.
Of course, you submit it to this committee, then give me a copy if you don't.
But maybe, Josh is saying that maybe if we announce that all 25% are eligible may retire.
And that's what we're concerned. I mean, I think that's a valid concern.
One last observation, I guess I just want to, looking at this, the Judiciary's request of 30.4, less the, let's say, the 2.4 for the mandated law enforcement increase, that will bring it down to 28 million. The increase here is not inconsistent with the increase that the other components, other agencies of the criminal justice systems requesting. For example, I just look at the governor's submittal. GPD is requesting from 27.3 to 29. That's about 1.7 increase. DOC is requesting from 19.5 to 22.4. That's 2.9 increase. That's in this budget submitted by the governor. DYA from 4.59 to 4.97. Customs and Quarantine from 7.9 to 9.15. And I know that the Attorney General, I cannot locate the figure here, but I know that the Attorney General is also requesting for an increase. So it is not unusual, and it is consistent with the Judiciary's slight increase, because it don't just correspond with all the other components of the criminal justice systems, and that's my observation with the slight increase, not counting the 2.4 for the mandated. So I like to share that with the public, that the slight increase is consistent with the other agencies of the criminal justice systems.
And other than the positions that we have enumerated in terms of the mental health, the probation, really the increase is attributed to the mandatory increases by statute. And so if this body is thinking that we're going to cut, that they're going to cut across the board from the existing level, then really you need to address you need to address the increments, you need to address the hazardous pay, and the figure that we got from for the retirement up there is from the retirement fund, so that correspondingly is going to be reduced, and of course that benefits us. But if you continue if these mandates continue, and that the funds are not there, then obviously you know the answer, and that is that personnel will be impacted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's it for now.
Mr. Vice Speaker.
Thank you very much. I know there was an attempt to sabotage my car, but I am here. And though I may be critical, I think many of you heard this morning my defense of the judiciary in that one case. And it really is a very important case to the community. And I commend the judiciary for undertaking all of these specialty courts. It really is, really, I can't express how much I commend you guys for doing this. But this is really the responsibility of mental health, a lot of this. And they should be sending us their fee schedule. And so I'm wondering if at some point we can move this back over to mental health, so that at least the costs of the testing, the hours of the counselors can be charged under the mental health fee schedule that is being imposed, or whether or not there's a way that you could have the mental health cost charged by the judiciary so that you can recover some of those costs. Because they have, for every hour that their psychologist does something, that money they're getting per hour reimbursement by the health care that, well, it's supposed to be for this upcoming year. So I need to try to, you have more legal minds there than and so I'm hoping that somehow we can figure out a way that we can recover some of those costs, either by transporting it all back over to mental health somehow, or figuring out a way that you can make the charges and it can be paid for by the health insurance for.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Speaker, we would be fully supportive and try and further your thinking and efforts. What we are looking for, because we have determined that this is an important service to a certain segment of our community that violate the criminal laws, not because they're bad people, but because they have a mental deficiency. And so we have taken upon ourselves to provide this service because it doesn't exist elsewhere. We're looking for a stable source of funding. However, if this body, and rightly so, and we fully agree, feels that the mental health is capable of delivering this service, we would gladly move that that expense and service to the Department of Mental Health. Because at this point we don't feel that that's the case, and we have determined internally in working with Senator Alina Machida that this is a segment of our community that needs our help, we will try to continue this service, and however you structure the permanent funding, we would be fully cooperative.
No, I really, again, commend the judiciary. I know that from when I was there 20 years ago, it was, we had the diagnostic treatment center only because the judiciary could not depend on the mental health to take on that responsibility. But now that they're going to have a fee schedule, I'm trying to figure out a way that we can recover some of these costs so that you can bring some, reimburse yourselves or something. But I'll let you guys try to figure that one out. But they have a fee schedule that they've announced, and I'm not sure whether or not somehow we can get the judiciary to receive that.
I will task Ginny Yasuhiro and someone within our administrative arm to work with the Department of Mental Health and try and identify the stable funding, and hopefully the legislature can appropriate for that, from that, if that fund is to be realized, and that may be a source of a permanent funding, and we'll hopefully try and come up with a joint plan to bring to this body before you end your deliberation.
Thank you. There was one other thing too, with the current headlines that we've been suffering for the last month, and I noticed that you have a lot of drug testing and alcohol testing. Has the judiciary looked into electronic bracelets and whether or not that is economically feasible?
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that, Mr. Vice Speaker.
Yes, Vice Speaker, we have looked into it. In fact, we did have a local vendor come in and do a presentation for electronic monitoring devices. Historically, we ran with BI Corporation in the continental United States, which was $10 a month. The current billing for the proposed G4S and TrackMe Guam is in excess of $60 per month and up to, $600 per month for local GPS tracking.
Per client?
Per client.
And you were getting it off island for 10?
We were getting it off island for, $10 a day, $300 a month. And so doing it locally would double the cost, and that's the cost to the client. That is the monitoring fee. That does not include the actual bracelet and the installation. So where we were doing BI Corporation at $300 a month, going with TrackMe Guam or G4S would be in excess of $600 per month.
The only reason why I'm asking about that is because I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that we can start with the level 1 sex offenders to have them bracelet, so that if they get away from 20 feet away from their telephones at the house, that it'll go off so that we know where they're at and what's happening. Because the community should not be living in the fear that we are with everything that's happening. And so we'll discuss this offline more at some point, but I really do think that we've got to figure out something. And thanks to the legislation that Senator Adda introduced about being able to go to the registries to find out who are family violence people and who are sex offenders, and I supported it because of the fact that it would be important for young people to, when they're dating, to know who they're dating and check them out. I know, Madam Chair, and I hope you forgive me for this, but if someone from the judiciary could, while people are watching in the community, how to get into the sexual offenders registry, so that people know how to be able to go look to see who your daughter is dating, who you're planning on, just as a, just to walk the community through so that they see how to be able to get into that.
You could easily go into one of the search engines, Google, and just type in Guam Sex Offender Registry, and you'll be able to go directly into the website.
Yeah, I did that. I've done that. I'm just saying I wanted to be able to show what it looks like so that people out.
Right, so you'll see that on our landing page. On our landing page, this is the guamcourts.com or guamcourts.org. On the left-hand side, on the landing page is the link to the sex offender registry. And here you can actually do a search for the offenders, or you can take a look at the offenders themselves. This top page is kind of like the most wanted. These are the people, the absconders that have not been reporting, trying to break them out. But that's a search with.
Okay, no, that's good.
I was going to search for Mr. Tenorio since he.
No, I don't want to discuss an ongoing case. I understand, so I'm not going there. Besides, it might show your name. But I really do think at some point, and I'm sure my colleagues probably kill me when we're talking about trying to reduce the number of specialty courts and things that you're doing, but at some point the community has been screaming and they're blaming us in the legislature somehow for not doing enough. They're blaming you in the courts for not doing enough to address sexual offenders. And so maybe at some point we can all get together and talk about how we as a community can work on doing better as it relates to sex offenses and how to be able to prevent it and to deal with the perpetrators.
In the area of the specialty court, the legislature has continued to be fully supportive of our effort, and we're very appreciative. What we have asked in the past, you have given us, and so we just want to make it known for the record that this area of our needs has been fully funded by the legislature in the past.
I know that we were discussing the new case management system. And I know you guys are probably expecting this, but the complaint that I get and about the judiciary are, I don't know how to put this as delicately as possible, but the thing is that I get calls from people saying, my case has been languishing for months, some for years, and so I keep trying to tell them that you can go on to the court page and you can see where the cases are supposed to be. And having been there, I know how to be able to scam the system on not have, if I don't schedule anything, nothing happens and it sits there. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that, what is the current status of our time schedule of getting decisions written, on the various civil cases, and what's the status on some of the criminal cases?
Yeah, let me say that, Mr. Vice Speaker, because you have been in our judiciary for a long time, and so you appreciate some of the issues. We meet monthly. The judges and the justices meet monthly. At every opportunity, the topic of the time standards is a subject. We believe, I personally believe, that we are making substantial progress in trying to improve the timeliness in issuing decisions. By the very nature of adopting these time standards, by now working with the judges to adhere to these time standards, However, we are not there yet. Every judge, justice is aware that now all of our productivity and performance is being put out in public and is available for public review. And there are internal measures that we're discussing now to provide further adverse incentives, or incentives that may result in adverse action. I don't mean it in terms of a personnel manner, but just in terms that, that there are consequences for not adhering to the time standards. We have just started this discussion, and so I'm not at liberty to discuss what those details are, but the judges are fully aware of their responsibilities.
No, I don't doubt that. And I'm just saying, because of the years that I spent over there, people feel they can call me, and somehow I have some direct connection to all of you and can make things move. And I just keep telling them, when I left, and I have not been back. And so I can't move anything anywhere. And so, but they just call me to complain about the fact that and so I'm just relaying to you what the biggest criticism that I get throughout the year as it relates to the judiciary. It's only been as of late that the dealing with the sex offenders has come up, but the time standards and moving the decisions is the one that I can count on at least once or twice a week, getting a constituent call me about a case. And so I'm just relaying that to you, and I know that you will address it and that you are trying to address it. I'm just saying that there is concern, and I think it would behoove all of us to try to figure out a way to move this forward so that my phone stops ringing.
And obviously we're trying very earnestly to address those issues. We recognize that justice delayed is justice denied, and you know, on our website it actually shows which cases are beyond the time standards, and the judges are well aware of, you know, what their cases are, the number of cases that are there, and we're trying to, you know, put priority on those cases that are the older cases so that we can ensure that they get done, you know, as soon as they can. Sometimes there are, you know, good cause for cases being delayed. Obviously, we live in a community where sometimes recusal of judges is required, and that process can take some time beyond, you know, as judges recuse themselves from particular cases. In addition, there are some cases that are quite complex, and the decisions can't come out as quickly as people would expect. But we are, you know, the Chief Justice is devoting resources to ensure that this is addressed. We're communicating constantly with the judges who know their obligations and understand and the desire to do that. And we've also adopted time standards for the Supreme Court as well to ensure that those cases get done in a timely manner and get adhered to.
And just one last one. I commend the court for establishing the DWI court, because I know that there was considerable criticism within the community about people reoffending in DUIs with outstanding cases, and I think if you just take maybe 2 minutes to explain what the DUI court is, and the fact that just about 1,300 new cases were given to it in just this year to try to move it through, so the community knows that you are trying to address this, and I'm not being critical. I'm trying to pitch a softball to let you guys hit the ball out of the park and show the work that you're doing to try to move these cases.
Of course, you know, we weren't able to provide all the information, but the current status is that all the backlogs, all those cases have been filed, and there's no further, there are no cases that were earlier charged or arrested that have not been charged and now has not in the system. And so it's now disposing of the cases and keeping up with the current filings. And just the other day, Judge Barrett Anderson said that she's been able to dispose of 40% of those cases, and she continues to make progress in that area. She has expressed that it's probably too much for just one judge in terms of trying to achieve the time standards, and so it was just Tuesday that I discussed it with the presiding judge and the various judges that are involved, that we're looking at possibly splitting that workload to 2 judges.
Thank you. I would allow you to ask another question in second round. Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to your legislature. I'm not familiar with the court, and so when I had the opportunity to sit in mental health court for that one day, as I shared with you, I was totally taken aback by many, many issues, or many, many things. But I think at the top of that really was the standards of excellence that I found all around. There are some things I was really concerned about, but overall I felt that the people, from the time you pull in and you go through that, check, and from every instance, I felt people were really paying attention and caring about their work and caring about what they do. I thank you, and I am also very concerned about how spread out you're dealing with the inadequacies of agencies, of departments, of our families. And so I do appreciate you stepping in, and as you're intervening, you're trying to do some prevention work. I really am hoping that our island becomes very serious about early childhood education, because I offer that is a big part of the solution to the continuous social fraying of our community. We're in sad shape. And the latest report we got from our AGs about the amount of sexual assaults that are going on with our children is yet another piece of evidence about that. And it is about people, and it's always going to be about people. And until we get serious about parenting and about what is right and what is wrong, you're going to continue adding specialty courts. And so I do appreciate your leadership in this area, and it is very much needed. And that day when I was in mental health court, there were, I think, 5 cases in front of us, and they were all Chamorros. They're all Chamorros. So every time someone says to me, it's all our visitors, I say, it is not. It isn't. We have a serious issue all around. So I think, something that Mr. Vice Speaker raised is the budgeting that's occurring for our different agencies, I really think needs to be looked at, and how do we further support you so that eventually they can do their primary work. Right. And so that's something that I really want to study and look at. I think mental health, substance abuse, I think that agency needs to get serious about delivering. I think Department of Education needs to get serious about early childhood education. I mean, by the time you get to kindergarten, it's almost too late, but yet you still have a command audience there. And I think our teacher preparation programs need to get as serious as well. And so I do want to thank you for your leadership and the work of everybody. I've gotten to know some people better, and it's just, you make a call, you email, and you get a response. I'm like, wow. They come to the table, they have data, and I think that's really refreshing. And so I know that the senators here are very committed to continuing to supporting you, and I'm one of those as well. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Welcome, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Senator Yamashita.
Senator Blas? Okay. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Speaker. First of all, I want to thank you very much for being here this morning. I want you to know that the Chief Justice earlier spoke about how it was easy for people to think and follow that train of thought, that when you talk about education, public safety, and health, those are the main priorities, and when you look at the judiciary, sometimes falls on the sideline. But I think what you've demonstrated here today is that you've picked up the inefficiencies of the departments and some of the other branches that don't follow through on what they're supposed to do. One very good example is the mental health court. And I appreciate the time that the group has spent in explaining this to me. And I tell you, it's going to be important, imperative for us to ensure that this continues. I understand the Vice Speaker's, his position as well, that This is something that mental health needs to assume and be able to continue. But at this time, I don't have the confidence that they're able to do it. And so you have a program there that's working, and this is something that at least for my part, will ensure that we continue to have at the courts. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for the other specialty courts and therapeutic works that you guys do at the Judiciary. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Mabini, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you all for being here today. I like that quote, "In God we trust," and what's it? Others must bring data. I think that's very valuable for many of us, since you're right there in the front line and experiencing the challenges and meeting the services that we need. And you know that I do support all the efforts that you've done. You provide a valuable service, and like we've mentioned, stepping up and taking on some of those that others may have not been able to fulfill. I do have a few questions regarding maybe some of the nuts and bolts. I'm curious, I think there was one screen that you had shared. What is the case manager to case manager ratio that you have generally?
It's probation. For probation, you mean?
Yeah. Maybe other areas that we should be aware of.
Within the specialty courts?
Yes.
Within the specialty courts, the case manager normally handles no more than 50 cases. For a probation officer, a regular traditional probation officer carries in excess of 200 cases, which is above the national standards.
Okay, national standards is what, 30?
120?
120, excuse me, okay. Second, because of course many of our concerns deal with our youth, and you have mentioned a lot about the juvenile youth court. Would you happen to have an estimate based on the numbers that you've collected on the amount of troubled kids that we have in our community?
The total population of
Yeah, just like an estimate.
I believe we have 600 cases.
So I think current cases, we have 650 juveniles under supervised probation. But there are some other numbers. Let me give you.
And the reason why I ask is because, we all want to help these individuals, all our people on Guam, to be very productive citizens. And if this is an area that we need to focus on, I'd like to get a better idea of some of these numbers.
Well, the actual numbers are much greater than what's seen on the board. We currently have 600 clients on juvenile probation. We roughly have about 200 in over 200 in juvenile drug court. But what's not listed there is our truancy cases filed with the Guam Department of Education. Those are in excess of 1,000. We also have juvenile special proceedings. Those are your beyond control complaints, and those could be in excess of a couple hundred. What we do, 781. But we do know that within the Guam Police Department, because the Criminal Investigation Division, specifically Juvenile Investigation, has only 4 officers, they're not able to interview, they're not able to finalize and complete all the investigations for juvenile cases. That's why there's a significant number of cases that have gone down that we received through juvenile investigation section that's actually filed with the Attorney General's office. There is a backlog at JIS, and there may be a backlog at Family Court Division of the Attorney General's office. So just me adding them up out loud, it's over 3,000. And then we have to realize that there are unreported cases on Guam, juvenile cases. We have cases where families don't report their kids beyond control. They don't want their kids involved in the criminal justice system. We also have clients that could be charged for truancy, but once they reach the age of 16, they may drop out of school, and that number is significant. I saw the numbers within our Guam high schools where since January, and I believe it's January or it could have been August, each high school has lost almost 400 or transferred 400 students. And those could be those that are 16 that are no longer going to school, or those that have relocated back home or relocated to the continental U.S. So, we're talking another 1,000 cases, another 1,000 juveniles that are no longer in Guam DOE. So, we're talking quite a number. If Juvenile Investigation Section had the number of personnel that required, the Attorney General's office had the number of attorneys that they needed, and collectively we all worked together. We could, like when I first came into juvenile probation back in '91, have in excess of 2,000 cases on juvenile probation. And those were our juvenile special proceedings, or beyond controls or truancies, and those were our juvenile delinquencies. Because when I came in 1991 as a probation officer under Judge Cruz, Judge Merriman, every probation officer in juvenile had over almost 250 to 300. And we had over 2,500, maybe even 3,000 cases in juvenile probation. And over the years, the number of people have gone down in Juvenile Investigation Section, GPD, and in the Attorney General's office. But we could theoretically see those numbers climb to 2,000.
Thank you. Numbers that we don't want to hear, we don't like to hear, but that's the reality. And you mentioned a lot about the various drug courts you have. I would just like to know currently what seems to be the biggest drug types that seems to be coming through the court systems.
For our adult drug court, crystal methamphetamine. And let me tell you about an incident that happened just last week. We had a client, adult drug court client, come into our office for drug testing. He tested positive. Because he was under the influence, we took away his keys. He had asked us if it's okay for him to go get his cell phone out of his car. So we, of course, two of my officers escorted the individual back out to his car. We requested for a search. The defendant said, sure, you can search. Is there anything we need to know about your vehicle? No. Is there anything illegal in your vehicle? No. Can we search? Yes. Our probation officers found 17 grams of crystal methamphetamine in the car. We also found over $3,000 in currency. And this is for a client. So for adult drug court, crystal methamphetamine is the number one. For our juvenile drug court, a combination of THC, marijuana, and of course, as you've seen in the paper, spice. So we're actually looking at, within juvenile drug court, within probation itself, our juvenile probation office, trying to see whether or not we can get drug detection kits for spice, and as well as drug testing kits for spice, so that we can test our clients on juvenile probation and juvenile drug court. So we do see crystal methamphetamine, amphetamines, we do see THC, marijuana in our drug courts, and also in our DWI courts, also in our regular juvenile delinquency and our criminal cases too, and some of our family violence cases as well.
Thank you. And last, I see in your presentation in various slides the education or vocational or employment referrals and placements, but I didn't see one of your partners, HRD or Department of Labor, One Stop. Is that something that you missed, or did not?
I think it was on the slide, and I did not mention them by name, but they're a critical part of our program, and we've seen with the new HRD director some more aggressive partnership with the Superior Court.
Okay. And the reason why I mentioned that is because there's potential funding support there that, maybe on the side we could discuss, and so the possibility to help support your efforts as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Respicio.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning, Your Honors, CJ and Justice Torres, and I also see Justice Merriman. Good morning. I appreciate your presentation, because people have to understand that the judiciary, once it decided to take on therapeutic and specialty courts, is making up the shortfall in other areas. You can easily quantify how much the courts have received in terms of federal funds, the CMS, funds outside of the general fund, but you as a matter of exercise, have you just ever imagined how much it would impact the general fund if you didn't take on all of these preventative efforts? I mean, it's in excess of hundreds of millions easily, and that's just a number, I think, very a conservative estimate. Just the example that was cited earlier, 17 grams of crystal meth found just by happenstance, and those kinds of stories need to be underscored, and it wasn't fair for some in our community to question the court and why you're doing all these things that the executive branch should have been doing. I like the Vice Speaker's idea, but I don't want to move quickly to transfer all of these duties to mental health. I know he's not saying that, and I think mental health will welcome this partnership, and they have. And maybe in the Budget Act we can authorize an MOU between the judiciary and mental health, and to authorize that any services that the judiciary provides that should be qualified under the fee schedule, we should do that authorization to try to recoup some of the cost. You know, Madam Speaker, as an acting budget chair, I know you recognize that there's a disconnect between what the executive branch is proposing. And every time a governor submits a budget, it tells a story of that administration's priorities. And this separation of powers doctrine seems like the executive branch should have all the power. Never mind the judiciary, never mind the legislature, never mind the concept of separate but co-equal branches of governments. You recall when the administration suggested to reduce the retirement contribution, he did that without recognizing the judiciary's retirement contribution will be reduced as well, but yet was not willing to give those monies to the judiciary until the legislature stepped up to do that. I'm also in much support of ensuring that we keep that guaranteed allotment, because the one way to recognize the judiciary's co-equal branch of government is to give those allotments and to support your fundings. And the Chief Justice mentioned without that provision in statute, you would be getting far less than what you are already getting now. Are you up to date with your allotments based on that agreement?
Yes. We're averaging between 87 and 90% now of what the cash allows in terms of actual collection, not necessarily what we're entitled to, but just what the statute provides.
And I talk about this disconnect because while we see increases in budget requests from all other agencies, surprisingly except for the Guam Memorial Hospital, the administration is undertaking an exercise to cut $43 million from current spending. So we don't understand what those exercises will result in the end. Have you been requested to participate in this $43 million exercise?
I have Perry attending the meetings to monitor the ongoing discussion, and that's the extent that we have been involved.
Any indication if the $43 million is going to be cut from the upcoming fiscal year budget?
We have no knowledge and information regarding that.
And as all we know, too, is what we're hearing in the press, that the $43 million is going to be cut to cash rather than appropriations. But it doesn't make sense, and I know it doesn't make sense to give these agencies throughout the government of Guam an appropriated level, and then once the appropriation is given, they're going to be expected to make some cuts. I mean, like the Justice Torres said, it doesn't make for good planning sense. And I also don't support these across-the-board cuts. Those don't make any sense either, because I was going to suggest that we figure out how to put the CCU under you so we can have a lower power bill. Maybe put the executive branch under the judiciary so we can because the reward for good work is more work. And I think your presentation really reflects your credibility in towing the line, towing spending, and living. This idea of living within your means is. You guys are demonstrating that you're doing that on a daily basis. And like I said, if you didn't go out and pursue these funds outside of the general fund, And if you weren't doing all these kinds of therapeutic and specialty courts, someone would have to pay for it. The taxpayer would have to pay for it in the other end. And I would suggest, Madam Speaker, that this committee and this legislature stay the course and support the judiciary, continue to support the judiciary, and this idea of the 7 autonomous agencies taking a 3% across the board. We don't have to live within the governor's prescription of what he sees should be the priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. I've only seen this current administration run in place over the last 2 years, only thinking that to inject $343 million in bond borrowing is a way out, but there's nothing beyond that. So that would be my focus in this upcoming budget process.
Let me just say, Senator Respicio, that we appreciate your support, but I hope you understand if we don't respond to some of the comments that you've made.
I appreciate you just keeping quiet. But that's a message in and of itself. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Senator Ada?
Good morning, Chief Justice and Justice Merriman and Torres. I'd like to thank you for the thorough presentation. It gives us an idea of what you guys are going through, and I think that it's admirable as to what you guys want to take on, as long as you can continue to get the funding. With all the specialty courts, everyone has did an outstanding job. The Marshals Division, probation, all the different areas of that fall under the court. But most especially, and my colleagues here have recognized that. But I wanted to recognize one part of your court that was recognized, but really not. I didn't hear too much of my colleagues speak about, and that's the Office of the Public Guardian. For all that you do, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Senator.
one last burning question from the Vice Speaker.
I was hoping actually that Senator Ada would pick up on my tossing the ball to him about his law about the family violence. I note that you want to have an entry clerk for the family violence registry. Protective order clerk. Is there a registry that we can get to on your website?
Our family violence coordinator is here, so I want to just bring her up, Siri Wilson. And while she's coming here, I just want to say that, there was a significant change in law that moved us from diversion to deferment, and it's actually part and parcel to the research that she's been doing. So, Siri, do you want to talk about that?
Good morning. The FE registry is taken care of by the AG's office, so we will not be taking care of that. We do take care of all of the protective orders, which we compile into a national database that's actually monitored by the FBI.
And I'm trying to figure out, for the benefit of the community, how do we get to that registry? Because Senator Ada introduced good legislation about requiring that we look, because I want the young women and even the older women that are going out dating to know who they're dating and if there have been family violence cases. Because I just looked at the paper the other day and I was shocked at the number of 19 and 20-year-olds that were magistrated for family violence. And so people need to know that when those people split up and you're starting to date, don't choose you know who to avoid. And so is there a search engine that we can find so that the young people out there can...
For the FE registry, we have just started building that. When the law was passed, the responsibility was put with the AG's office, and they recently reached out to us and asked them to help them, and we're doing that. We have our computer people, our MIS department, working with them, and we're working with Senator Rodriguez, and I think that it's going to be happening very soon.
So there are two things here. The protective orders clerk is pushing the protective orders into that national database for law enforcement use. And then there's the legislation you're talking about with the do not date list. And basically, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, based on our discussions, we're going to be, I think the Purdue or some university is providing assistance to the AG's office who asserted that they wanted to be in charge of this in order to get this off the ground.
Okay. I just am concerned that
Right.
I have people that are of dating age, and I
Right.
want them to
I know
know
we're
now.
calling it the Do Not Date Registry.
Okay.
Thank you. Senator Blas, I know you didn't have a question earlier, but you do now.
There is a question. And Chief Justice, with regards to, if you can, Josh, if you can pull up the budget again? There you go, that one. Your approved budget for FY 2012 was basically 24.7 million. How much did you get in special funds or in federal funds to supplement that?
Is Jackie here? Jackie, can you take that seat?
Yes,
Just for FY 12 alone?
Right.
I believe it was a little over $1 million, I think it was. What we reported to you in our budget submission was projected was $619,000.
Okay.
But that has increased. We have increased the amount of grants that we've submitted to well over $3 million, but that's all in pending.
Is that included in that
For-
figure that we have there? No?
No.
Not in FY 12, no.
that's-
Okay. Now, the next question is, what is your projected expenditure for FY 12?
FY 12?
Yes, for this year. What do you project your expenditures, your total expenditures to be?
Well, we're only authorized, in terms of local funds,
Uh-huh.
is what has been appropriated to us, 24.7 million.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking this is I'm looking at a report, you know where my specialty is at in compact impact. And it says that in FY 2011, your expenditures were about 34,233,218. My concern here is, no, yeah, please. I'm a little concerned here. There's about $10 million drop here.
But that's not just from operations, as Tony will explain.
Yeah.
The compact impact combines all the various funds the court has.
Yes.
It has Superior, Supreme, Jury Trust, Public Guardian, JBF. All these are combined.
Okay.
And that's how we come up with that summary. So if you're looking at the total expenditure for the court,
Yeah.
you're pulling out all the expenditures from every fund.
Okay.
What we're focusing here right now is just operation.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so along those lines, then, what are your projected total expenditures for the lock, stock, and barrel?
If you're looking at your report again,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be roughly about the same amount, because that's how we're trending it in the last couple of years already. We're over $30 million.
But there is an increase in the number of court cases that you have, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was looking at this number and looking at these numbers, and I'm like, there's a $10 million disparity here. Where are we getting?
Yeah, as he indicated, those
Covering that.
are for all of the other funds, including JBF, the trust, and
Okay.
We'll join.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chair, sorry.
Mr. Chair, can I just, so we don't have any family violence on this side of the table, I just want to clarify that was Senator Rodriguez's law and not Senator Adams. And I have his authorization to say that.
So any comment on this side, sir?
That's why he didn't catch her.
Okay. Any more? Well, the speaker, okay. I recognize Senator Rodriguez. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, or if anyone can answer, I know we talked about the mental health court. We also looked at, and you mentioned briefly about a veterans mental health court. All of the number of individuals who service there, do you have a count of how many of them are veterans?
We're actually working on a count right now. Jackie Cruz and Virginia Yasuhiro and I are gathering the data to determine, in response to your questions about the veterans population, and also the other request that you had was about juveniles with that may be eligible to, if we had a juvenile portion in mental health court. So we're consolidating the data, and we're going to transmit that over to you. working with Judge Socola. Anecdotally, Judge Socola told me that, she sees a strong need for it because of the cases she's seeing in mental health court and the military service or veteran status. So we're going to quantify that and give that to you hopefully next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any more on that? Well, last comment, the speaker had to excuse herself. My observation with this presentation, I believe it's a very good presentation. It's a very good accounting of services versus expenditures. And I think the requested amount, which is the increase, as you can see out here, 2.4 is, and all of these are mandated, meaning that there's really no way out other than reduce services and or not comply with the law itself. And so I guess the committee is very satisfied with the presentation, and it is very good accounting of what went through to the end of this fiscal year and what's coming down with the new budget that you requested. Before I close, I would like to ask if there's any last comment on any of the panel members or any here. Your Honor, I recognize you.
I just needed to, on two things, Justice Merriman pointed out that, number one, on the Family Violence Court, there are certain counseling services that we have a fee structure for. So in that review, in response to Vice Speaker Cruz's, we'll give you that information. And the second thing is that there is a percentage of veterans that make up the wards of the public guardian as well. That's all I wanted to add on.
The only thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, is I want to publicly thank the employees of the Judiciary who are here in this room. They have been the ones that have contributed the data, the information that results in us trying to summarize in an hour and a half what easily could take days for us to try and convey. And they have worked extremely hard in trying to provide you with the information that's necessary for you to do your work and hopefully gain your confidence that we need your help to continue to provide the service that we do. And as I said at the outset, I feel that it's a good investment on your part with tangible returns, and that we are asking for your support. Thank you on behalf of my colleagues who are here today.
Your Honor, you and your team, thank you very much also for that excellent presentation, and we take some notes. We'll consider those input. We will communicate as myself, the chair, that has oversight the Judiciary. We will communicate probably next week to see how we can better prepare for the final, presentation on the floor of your budget needs and so forth. And with this, the hearing on the budget request for the Judiciary is now concluded. The time right now is 11:40 in the morning. Your Honor, thank you very much. Colleagues, thank you very much. We conclude this.